Hi there, I'm Dr. Faye Hargrove. Welcome to part 2 of my 2020 Letting Go video series. If you have not already watched part 1, it might be a good idea at this time to go back and watch it first because I laid the foundation for this video and the ones to follow in that first session. Now in this session, we will go through an actual intervention to release the anger from your memory storage system, which I call your timeline. Again, if you have not already viewed the first video, please stop now and go back because this session and the sessions to follow will make a lot more sense to you if you have laid the groundwork from session 1. So let's talk about anger. In the previous video, you participated in an exercise where you recall 3 memories. In the first memory, you thought of a time when you were really having a big laugh. Then you thought of a time when you were angry. And in the third memory, you thought of a time when you were excited. Yes. Now, as a result of recalling those 3 memories, you felt 3 different emotions, right? Well, if you recall, that exercise was designed to demonstrate to you that even though those situations are not currently happening, emotions are stored along with the facts of what happened in your memory storage system. There have been times in your life where you've been angry. Maybe sometimes you've been very angry to the point of being furious. Maybe you have a significant emotional event or trauma in your life and where you were extremely angry, and when you think about it now, you can still feel some of that anger. Anger is a natural emotion that gives us information about a situation. So here's the point. Even though it may have been perfectly natural for you to feel anger about a specific event, it is not necessary for you to hold on to the anger. In fact, holding on to the anger can do harm to you physically. It impacts your choices. In fact, anger makes you stupid. Have you done anything in the past that you regret because you were angry? There is a lot we could say about why it's important for you to let go of anger, but I'll just quote the famous and fabulous South African leader, Nelson Mandela, who said, "Holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die." Makes no sense, right? So I will not spend much time convincing you to let go of the anger. If you're watching, at this point, you've probably decided that it's time to let it go. So for the next few minutes, we're going to focus on releasing the anger from your memory storage system. Listen to the steps in the process. In the next few minutes, we will first establish your timeline. That is how your memory storage system is organized. And then we're going to practice having you access events from your memory storage system. Let me remind you of something I discussed briefly in the first video, and that is the distinction between your conscious and your unconscious mind. Now imagine if I asked you to blink 3 times. Easy, right? But you've been blinking all day. And suppose I asked you to take a deep breath. Easy, right? But you've been breathing all day. So what is the difference? When I asked you to blink 3 times, you made it a conscious process. You thought about blinking and you blinked. You did it, right? And when I asked you to take a deep breath, you thought about it and you took a deep breath. You made it a conscious process. However, if you've been breathing all day, and even when you go to bed at night and fall asleep, you continue to breathe, so your unconscious mind has a job to manage all of these processes in the background. And you can trust your unconscious mind because it's taking pretty good care of you right now, right? So in this process, I'd like for you to trust your unconscious mind and allow it to do all of the work for you. Just as blinking for you is an unconscious process, and your unconscious mind is blinking for you right now, and it's breathing for you right now, it's digesting the last meal you had, and it's beating your heart right now. So your job in this process is to just sit and relax and take on the role of observer. Just observe how your unconscious mind will respond to my suggestions, and we will get the work done. Your unconscious mind has been managing your timeline your entire existence. You might be surprised to notice that your timeline, or your memory storage system, actually has a feeling. So some people can notice that their past feels like it's in one place or another around their body. In their future, their plans for their future events that have not occurred yet, feel like they're in another place around the body. So for me, my past feels like it's behind me. And when I think of first grade or high school or college, those events feel like they're behind me. That might be different for you, or it might be the same. For some people, the past might feel like it's to their right or down or in some other place. For me, my future feels like it's out in front of me. For some people, that might be the same, or their future might feel like it's to their left or to the right or up. Different places according to how you're arranged. Watch what happens when I ask you to remember something about elementary school or maybe first grade. So you just went somewhere in your mind and you got information, maybe a picture, maybe a question about first grade, maybe you saw an image of your first grade teacher, or you had a feeling, or you just had a knowing of where you attended first grade. That information is stored in your timeline. Now, how is your timeline set up? Is it back to front like mine? Is it left to right? Is it up to down or down to up? Where is your timeline? Now, the funny thing about that question is that you can't think of the answer. You can't think of the answer about how your timeline is organized because it's an unconscious process. It's actually not in the job description of your conscious mind to know the answer to that question. But you can know. So if you were to know where's your past, I'd say point to your past now. So for me, I'd point this way. So you point to your past now. Excellent. Now point to your future. Perfect. So your timeline runs exactly the way you just indicated. Now, your unconscious mind can actually give you a peek at what your timeline looks like. So why don't we do that? Let's take a test drive to take a peek at your timeline. This is a guided imagery where you can use your fabulous imagination, and we will take a peek at what your unconscious mind has been up to, storing all of those memories your entire life. We're going to take a peek at your timeline because we'll be working with your memory storage system for the rest of this process. In this session and in the 4 sessions to follow, we will access your timeline and release the stored negative emotions. Let me describe the process to you before we actually begin. So I'm going to ask you to just imagine. Here's where we will use your active imagination, and I'm going to ask you to imagine that you could just sit on the chair like I'm sitting here. Imagine that you can leave your body sitting here and float your mind way up high. And as you float your mind way up, I'm going to ask you to imagine that you can look down at the top of your head and notice your past. That is, your past memories, and notice your future memories stretching out away from your body in different directions. And maybe they look like a line. So I wonder if you could get comfortable in your chair and sit back. And we're going to take a sneak peek at your timeline. Now, don't do this if you're driving. Closing your eyes is not a good idea if you're driving. So close your eyes. Just imagine that you can leave your body sitting right there on the chair where it is and float your mind way up. You can look down and notice yourself. And as you look down and notice yourself, so there's your timeline way down there, allow your unconscious mind to show you how you store time. So you can notice the past events stretching out away from your body in one direction. And you can notice your future plans stretching out away from your body in another direction. That's your timeline. You can notice your timeline, can't you? Excellent. Now, with your eyes still closed and you're still floating high above your timeline. Maybe you can't actually see it. Maybe you can just get a sense for the fact that it's there, and maybe you can notice that it feels like the past is in one direction and the future is in another direction. Maybe you just know that it's there. So can you notice your timeline? Good. Now I'd like for you to continue to float way up there. It helps if you keep your eyes closed and imagine that you can face the direction of your past. So you're floating way up high above your timeline. Your timeline's down there, and imagine floating out over your past. And as you face the direction of your past, just allow your unconscious mind to float out over your past memories and allow you to notice whatever there is to notice. And maybe for this trip, we can focus on noticing happy times. So just notice any events in your timeline as you float out over your past, any happy times from your past, and information just comes to your mind as you float. And you might notice when you were enjoying yourself, just noticing as you float out over your past. Good. Now when you're ready, I wonder if you could face the direction of your future and float out over the future direction of your timeline. Now notice anything that there is to notice about plans you have for yourself. You're just noticing, you're floating, looking down at your timeline and noticing, floating out over your future. Good. Now when you're ready, float right back above now. You can float right back down into the room and open your eyes. Welcome back. How was that? If you were able to notice some memories from your past, and if you were able to notice some future memories or some plans that you have for your future, that's all that was required at this point, and you did a great job. That was a test drive on your timeline. Now, we're going to take 5 short trips on your timeline, similar to what you just did. In each trip, we're going to actually release stored negative emotions from your past memories. Think about them as folders on your computer. We'll use the metaphor or the analogy of folders in your timeline. First, we'll release any anger in any of the folders in your timeline. You might actually think of the anger as an email attachment. We can delete the attachment without actually deleting the memory or deleting the email, right? So the folders go all the way back as far as your timeline goes. So however old you are, however long it's been that you came into existence, that's how far back your timeline goes. Now, all of your memories are in that timeline. You might think, well, I can't remember certain things. But from the first time you came into being, your unconscious mind recorder was recording each and every experience that you've ever had, and everything you've ever known is still in there. So I could ask you, do you remember the day you were born? And you might be tempted to say, no. But your unconscious mind could correct you and say, of course I do, I was there. Now, in those places where you have stored negative emotions that aren't currently serving you, we can go in and delete those negative emotions. So that's exactly what we're going to do at this point, beginning with anger. And here's the really cool thing about this process. Just as when you want to delete a file on your computer, you don't have to actually open the file and read it. You don't have to spend any time thinking about it or digesting what it says, right? And just in order to delete it. So in order to delete the emotion from an event, you don't have to actually think about it or consciously process it or feel it, period. We just right-click, highlight, delete, just like on your computer. And so you don't have to think about this process at all. Just trust your unconscious mind and be an observer. You can be an observer, can't you? I'm sure you can. So I'd like you to just allow that unconscious part of you, that part that operates in the back room, to do just what it does. And you can be the observer. Is that okay? Good. So in this process, which is going to be quick and very simple. What I'm going to ask you to do is use your active imagination, just like you did when we did the test drive on your timeline. And imagine you can leave your body sitting right there on your chair, and I'm going to ask you to face the direction of the past and float out over your past to the very first event in your timeline where you stored anger, and that's called the root cause memory. Now, the root cause is the very first time that you stored that particular negative emotion in your timeline. And think about the root cause as the knot on a string of beads. So if I held up a string of beads, these pearls aren't falling to the floor because there's a clasp on the end, right? Now, if I take some scissors and I cut the clasp, then all of these pearls will just fall off to the floor. Now imagine if there were some really big beads here on the string and I cut the clasp, they'd fall off also, right? So think of each of these pearls as a memory, as a time when you experienced anger. What we're going to do is go to the root cause memory, which think of it as a clasp. When we cut the clasp, when we address the root cause memory, then all the beads fall off the string. So you'll float back to that very memory, the very first event where you stored anger for the first time. We'll float high above it, and just as you notice your timeline, you'll float high above that particular event. I'm going to ask you to trust your unconscious mind, and we will only address the root cause memory, which is like the clasp. And when we cut the clasp, all of the angry beads will fall off the string, because actually your unconscious mind will rearrange all of your past memories, and as you float back toward now, it will release the anger from every memory. Now, when we float back to the root cause memory, I will ask you to float right above that memory, and you will notice as you look down at your timeline at that event that there was a situation occurring there in which you were angry. I'll ask you to float high above that point on your timeline and to notice what you can learn from that situation that will help you let go of the anger. Now, your unconscious mind will just let go of whatever anger is there, and you can make the choice to do that. And you can imagine that there's a balloon right above your head. So this is why we call this process the balloon process. So just imagine that there's this balloon right above your head. And when all of that anger, you let it go, it goes into the balloon, and we'll float the balloon off into the distance, and we'll pop the balloon. When we pop the balloon, all the anger from that memory will be gone forever. And so then I'll ask you to float. You're still high above the event, but I'll ask you to float a little further back to before the series of the sequence of events that set that situation into motion. So maybe at least 15 minutes earlier. So you'll float a little further back, and your unconscious mind will accommodate you perfectly. And you float back a little bit further and face the direction of now, and I'll ask you to notice the event and then notice your feelings in your body right now. Check on your feelings and notice where's the anger. And you will actually notice that it has disappeared. It's gone. So then I will ask you to float right down into the event, right into your timeline. And I'd like you to notice the event through your own eyes. Just pay attention to what was happening as if you were there again. And just notice anything there is to notice about the situation, and you're going to get the learning or the new insight from that situation. Now that you're not angry about it anymore, you have a whole new perspective. Each moment that we've been through, particularly when we've experienced hardship, tough situations, that situation gives us a gift, or it has a gift for us, and we can learn from that situation. So here's an opportunity to get the gift, to get the learning, to have a new perspective that will help you in the future when you face situations like that. I like to say, what would God have you know about that situation? I will ask you if there's anyone in the situation that you need to forgive. And maybe you already know this, but I'd like for you to remember that forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. When you have let go of the anger, you have the new insight, and you have done any forgiving that's appropriate or that you want to do, I'm going to ask you to float way back up high above the memory. Don't worry, I know this is a lot to remember, but I'll be talking you through this entire process. And if you will trust your unconscious mind and you can become the observer, it will be pretty simple. So I'm going to ask you to float back above your timeline and then face the direction of now after you release the anger in the memory. And then as you float back toward now, it's like we just cut the clasp on the string of pearls. And as you float back toward now, your unconscious mind rearranges all of your past memories and you release all the anger from every memory as you float back toward now. Just like that. The first event, the root cause event, is like the clasp on that string of pearls. And we cut the clasp, and as you float back toward now, all of the other beads fall off, all of your anger memories, all of your anger will be released from all of your memories. Even really big beads, remember? So if there have been traumatic events in your past, if there have been events that made you really angry or where you had a huge emotional impact, just like the beads slide right off the string, those emotions will release just like that as you float back. So you'll stay up high, you're going to float back to now, and as you do, you will release all the anger. So as you float back to now, remember your unconscious mind is going to rearrange all of your past memories and let go of all of the stored negative feelings from your past memories. That's all of the anger. Now, it's going to allow you to keep the new insight. So you will keep the learning from each memory so you can use those lessons to serve you in the future with a fresh perspective. As you float back to now, you're just going to notice your unconscious mind rearranging all of your past memories all the way back to now. This will be a good time for you to grab something to write on, grab a pen or some paper. And I'd like for you to think about the statement, I feel angry about, and complete that statement. Can you identify a time, at least one thing in your life, that when you think about it at this moment, it still brings you a feeling of anger? Just jot down one thing that you feel angry about. Or it could be one word. Don't write a whole paragraph. Just something to remind you of this situation. And when we have released the anger from your timeline, I'm going to ask you to look back at what you wrote and notice how your feelings have changed. So this is kind of your before and after proof to yourself that you actually let go of this anger. So stop the video now and make a note. And remember, it could be one word, anything that reminds you of the situation where you were angry. Great. Welcome back. So we're going to begin the process of actually releasing the anger. I've described it for you. You know what's coming, so let's do it. So let's take you to the perfect, appropriate place for you to let go of the first memory of stored anger. Remember, that is the root cause. That is where you had the very first memory of anger and you stored it in your timeline. And you stored that along with the memory. It might have been before your birth, it might have been during your birth, or it might have been after your birth. So your root cause memory, the first time you experienced anger, was it before your birth, during your birth, or after your birth? Now your unconscious mind just gave you an answer. Allow the answer to emerge from your unconscious mind if you don't already have it. And there it is. If it was after your birth, at what age? What number just popped into your head? If it was during your birth or before your birth, we're going to trust your unconscious mind to float you back as far on your timeline as you need to go to locate the root cause event. We're going to float high above that event. And now trust your unconscious mind. And remember, letting go of stored negative emotions from your timeline is taking that clasp and cutting it from that string of beads. So that very first event, that root cause event, is the clasp on the beads. And that's why it's important for us to get the first event, not the biggest event, but the first. When we get the first event, As you float back, the rest of the beads will slide off the string. The rest of the anger will be allowed to release from your timeline as your unconscious mind is able to rearrange all of your past memories, letting go of all anger between that first memory and now. So, I know I've been doing a lot of talking, so let's let the anger go. So just sit back, relax in your chair, and let's get back in touch with your timeline. I'm going to start my music. Get back in touch with your timeline. And imagine that you can leave your body sitting right there on the chair, where it is, and float your mind way up. It's helpful to do this with your eyes closed. So as you're floating high above your timeline, face the direction of your past and trust that unconscious mind of yours. Just notice as you're floating high, looking out over the past, that root cause memory is out there. That's where we're going. Notice your unconscious mind is floating up and out over your timeline to the very first event, the first memory of anger. So just go all the way out there now. So maybe your eyes are closed, you're up high floating out over your timeline. Your unconscious mind is going to float you out now to the very first memory, the very first memory of anger. When you get there, float high above the situation, look down at that point on your timeline, and notice that event. Notice the situation. Now make sure you stay up high and you're just looking down at a point on your timeline. Is it okay for your unconscious mind to get the learning from that situation so that it will allow you to quickly and easily let go of the anger from that memory? And so that this lesson can serve you in the future. Is it okay for your unconscious mind to let go of the anger from that memory? Good. So notice the anger. Your unconscious mind will just release the anger into the balloon. Just let it go. Make sure you stay up high and notice the anger going into the balloon. And when all the anger is in the balloon, the wind is taking the balloon away from you and it's floating off into the distance, higher and further. And in a few seconds, the balloon will pop. And when it does, all of the anger from that memory will be gone forever with the balloon. So your eyes are closed, the balloon is floating away from you. Excellent. Good. Now, you're still high above that root cause memory. I wonder if you could float a little further back on your timeline, maybe a few minutes before the beginning of the sequence of events for that situation. So you're high above the memory. A few minutes before it began, you're looking down at your timeline. You're up high, you're looking at the memory right before it started. Let's do a body scan. And notice your feelings in your body right now. Where's the anger? You let it go, didn't you? Excellent, excellent. So now we're going to float right down into your timeline, right down into that memory, right into that root cause memory, and you're going to notice what's happening. So see it through your own eyes. Notice whatever there is to notice about the situation and get the learning. The new insight will allow you to have a different perspective about that event. Now you've released the anger, so as you go into the situation and notice what's happening, get the learning. And I wonder, is there anyone in that situation that you can forgive? So you get the learning. What is the new insight? What is the new way of viewing that? And is forgiveness appropriate? And if it is it okay to go ahead and forgive? Excellent. You've done a great job. You released the anger. You have gained a completely new perspective and insight. And if forgiveness was appropriate, you've done that. So now let's come back above your timeline. Let's float way up high above your timeline. And you're going to float back to now. And as you do, just notice your unconscious mind is rearranging all of your past memories and letting go of all anger from all of your past memories. So you're way up high, you're floating back toward now. Take as much time as you need to float on back to now, and as you do, just notice your unconscious mind is rearranging all of your past memories, letting go of all anger from all of your past memories. So we cut the clasp on the string of pearls when we were in the root cause memory, and now as you're floating back toward now, your unconscious mind is rearranging and releasing all the angry pearls. All the pearls are falling off the string. You're releasing, you're letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, all the way back to now, releasing all anger from every memory, all the way back to now. Take as much time as you need and stay up high as you float back to now. You're just noticing your unconscious mind rearranging all of your past memories, letting go of the anger. Let it go. Keep the new insights so they can serve you in the future, and you're floating all the way back to now. Excellent. Stay up high as you float back to now, letting go, letting go. Just notice your unconscious mind rearranging all of your past memories, letting go of all the anger from all of your past memories as you stay up high and continue to float back toward now. Take as much time as you need, and when you get back above now, you can float down into the room and open your eyes without the anger. All the way back to now. All the way back to now, letting go. And when you arrive above now, after you have released the anger from every memory, you can float down into the room and open your eyes. Great. Welcome back. How was that? You did a great job. You've had the opportunity now to go through the first trip in the balloon process. We will do that 4 more times. So the next trip we take on your timeline will be to release sadness. Look back at what you wrote for the statement, I feel angry about. Let's stop for a moment. Let's pause for a moment and go back and take a look at that. And check it against your feelings. So how have your feelings changed about that situation that you wrote about anger? It could be that it's no longer an issue for you. Or it could be that you're feeling something else. That maybe you can, or maybe you can't exactly put a label on it. If you're feeling differently is really all that counts. Remember, we have 4 more sessions, and that will give you an opportunity to release any other emotion you might be feeling about that situation. I bet you have a completely different perspective about that situation now. I wonder if you can take a few minutes to just jot down the learnings from the root cause memory, the first anger that you released in your timeline, and you went into your timeline and you got the learning. Can you jot down the new perspective, the new insight that you have? Just jot that learning down. So stop the video, hit the pause button, write down the learning. Excellent, welcome back. You have done an excellent job. You know, a lot of people don't believe that actually letting go of anger and your stored emotions can be such a simple process. Well, now you see how this works. And I'm really excited about the fact that we have 4 more times to do this. So now let's think about the future. And let's get back in touch with your timeline just for a second. So maybe you can close your eyes, float back up high again, and face the direction of your future. Now, looking out over your future at some unspecified time, can you notice a time in the future where you might have that anger again? Can you notice a time when that anger might be there in the future? I bet you can. Excellent. You can come on back down into the room when you're ready and open your eyes. Great job. You have released the anger, and now you have a whole new perspective on events from your past. In the next video, we will release stored sadness. In session 4, we are going to release your fears and your anxiety. In session 5, we're going to focus on releasing guilt. And in the final video in this series, we will release limiting decisions. That involves all the self-doubt and the insecurities. Now, you might be tempted to jump to the last video, but please resist doing that. You'll get the best benefit of restoring your confidence in the last video if you've done the process in order, sessions 1 through 5. So I hope this helped you face the new year without the anger from previous years. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons and turn on your alerts, and so you will get a notification when I post the next video, which will be to release sadness. See you next time.